AMM 112L, how to draw jeans back details. Okay, so this is where we're going to go over how to do details on the back of the jeans. Okay, so we already went over on the previous tutorials how to do the front, now we're doing the back. So right off the bat, you do want to have the waistband be the equal length or width as the front. So one of the things that I recommend is that you can draft a little line. It doesn't have to be exact, which is perfect, but just gives you kind of an idea on the width of that band and bring it on over to help you look at the width and just rotate it, reflect it, and that lets you know how wide your band has to be. Now in terms of the back shape, all you have to do is get the front shape and just make a copy. Okay, through the rulers, make sure you bring a guideline so you have the center and you're ready to go on your details. So just make sure that all these details go on the detail layer. So first of all, you're just going to draw a straight line. So you're just going to press shift and with the pen tool just draw a straight line, and that'll give you the width of the waistband. Notice a little bit high, so I'm going to go down just a little bit. I'm going to select my band and just go down. Okay, just make sure none of the edges are passing through or they're leaving a little gap. Make sure that they actually intersect. Then I can go ahead and remove that. Actually, that's even the wrong. There we go. I'm removing that. I had that on the wrong layer. Okay, so I'm on details. I have the waistband. Just like the front waistband, you have to have the stitching. So typically you have stitching one row on the top, one row here on the bottom. I'm going to go ahead and select my line and just make copies. So I'm going to have a line right above that. And what you can do is scroll out and go ahead and use the eyedropper tool on your details, and you get the exact same stitching because you should have the same consistent stitching. And just bring that really close to the line, and then go ahead and make a copy of that and bring it really close to the other line. Okay. Now keep in mind, if I'm moving it up, this line's going to be too long, so you just need to bring it in. Make sure it's not passing the boundaries. Same thing right here, bring it in. Okay. And now you have the stitch details. Another thing that you want to have is the belt loops that go on the waistband. So you can go ahead and make copies or draft another one. I'll just go ahead and draft another one for you. But if you just made it, had one floating off to the side there, then you can just make copies. So I'm going to go to my stroke menu, Windows and Stroke. Let me take this off so I don't need this. I'm going to turn it into a solid line because we don't want a dashed line there. And again, this is just review, but for a typical belt loop, you just literally make one stitch line, press shift. I can go ahead and use the eyedropper tool and get the same stitch. And I'm just going to go ahead and make a copy of that. Okay, and I can tell this is still a little thick, so for the belt loops, I think the stroke needs to be a little bit smaller. So instead of 0.25, I'm going to make it 0.15. Okay, that's better. Then you're going to go ahead and make a line. Again, this is review. A solid line. And again, make it really thin, about 0.15. Sorry about that. You're going to select it and you're going to go under Effect, Distort and Transform, and Zigzag. And you're going to click on Preview. Don't panic. Do 0.08 perhaps, and then increase the ridges per segment. Somewhere in the 20s or 30s. You're just going to have to eyeball it. And then I'm going to press Alt to make a copy. And then you have your typical belt loop. Okay? Some of you might have a belt loop where it's just one straight line in the middle. It just depends on your jeans. Okay? So typically on a standard pair of jeans we have 3 belt loops, one in the center, one on each side. Okay, so do one on each side. Now if you put it on the side though, what's the problem? You can see that you can see right past it, you can see right through it. So what do I need to do on my belt loop? You need to add white fill to the rectangle. So I'm going to go ahead and get my white rectangle and I'm going to add white fill. And now I'm going to make, and what I'm going to go ahead and do is also group it together, all the elements. So now I just select once and I can make a copy. And see, now that's over my waistband. And I can mirror that on over to the other side. And then I have one on the center. Before I place this one on the center though, I do want to draft my center line. So I'm going to go ahead and with my pen tool, press shift all the way down to the crotch, and that's my center back seam. You do want to keep it at about a little bit less than the stroke on the shape. So if my stroke on the shape is 1 point, then I want to do about 0.75. Now that I have my back seam, now I can go ahead and get my belt loop and bring that on over. Press Alt. Okay, now I have it in the center. Now the one thing though is I drafted this line afterwards, so I do either have to select this line and send it to back, or select the belt loop and arrange bring to front. Okay, and see, now that's over the line. Okay, since this is nice and straight, you don't have to rotate your belt loops. Next thing that's on the jeans is the yoke. Okay, not an egg yolk, it's the actual yoke on the jeans, so if you ever see it. And you can go ahead and just do one and mirror it on over. I'm just going ahead and drafting it for the sake of time. And I'm going to go ahead and with the white arrow, let's actually join that. Now it does depend on your jeans. Some of them, I just moved that line by accident. Some of your jeans will have it kind of down here, others will be a little more shallow, so you really have to look at your jeans and see how it looks. Also, you have to look at your jeans because some of them will have the rows of stitching above it or below it, so you have to look to see how your jeans are. If there's 1 or 2 rows above it, then make sure no fill. Sorry, mine had to fill. Take that stitch line, and then you do 2 copies, 1 more copy of that, or if you have it below it, then you have to have a stitch line below that. Okay, and have 2 rows. So you're going to have to look at your jeans and see how they look. Okay, and oftentimes it's not surprising to have 2 rows. So if it's 2 rows, then you have to make 2 copies and just make sure that they don't go the bounds. And when they do, just go ahead and cut with the scissor tool. And just snip away. And just snip away. And just make sure that's even, and that's where you can go with the white arrow and start tweaking it to make sure that it's even. Okay. Once you do that, just for the sake of time, I'm going to stop with this. I know the longer these tutorials are, the harder it is for you. Next to the line, you're going to have to look at your jeans and see what side where the seam is, the stitches are. So if it's on this side, then you usually have 2 rows of stitching, or at least 1 row. Usually you see 2, but at least 1. With your eyedropper tool. And then you just go ahead and finish the line, because it's a crotch seam, it's still going to continue on, so you're just kind of cut in there because it's assumed that it's going to go in. And just bring it in a little closer to that center line. Okay. If it's 2 rows, then again you're just going to make a copy of that stitch line and make it 2 rows. Okay. And what's next on the jean, the back jean, is the jean pocket, the back pocket. Fastest way to do it, you got to look at the shape, but usually start off with kind of a rectangular square, maybe not a perfect square. Make sure it's solid line, and you're going to go to your pen tool, open up the menu, and do the second item, which is add anchor point tool, and add an anchor point on the bottom segment, and then go ahead back to the pen tool and select convert anchor point tool, and then just bring that down. on the point and just bring it down. I'm sorry, not convert anchor point tool. I really am tired. The white arrow. Go down the white arrow and bring it down. Start again. Do that again. So sorry. We're going to do like a square, not a perfect square, in solid. You're going to add anchor point tool. And then with the white arrow, you're going to bring it down. Sorry, not convert anchor point tool. I was just showing that just to, that's what I have in my brain right now. If the pocket seems too big, then use the white arrow and shrink it down, or if it's too low, make it bigger. Some pockets are bigger than others, so you're just going to have to look at your jeans and determine how big they need to be. But we're just going to go on kind of what's average. Okay, we'll rotate them in a second, but let's just get the details in first. I'm going to zoom in to our pocket. And typically what we see, and with the pen tool, I'm going to go ahead, and we usually have typically 2 rows of stitching is what's standard. And I have the Smart Guide, so I can do this. And I'm going to go ahead and use the eyedropper tool and get the stitching down. And usually you have another row, and this is where you can go with the white arrow. Like, see it, this is a little bit closer, this is a little bit farther. So this is where you can go with the white arrow and then fix it. Okay, unless it can match better. And then you can go ahead and do a second row, although usually this one is a little bit wider on the top, and then it runs parallel. Typically what we see. So we're going about what's considered average. You're going to have to look at your jeans, how they curve. It's not as good as it could be. Okay. Usually we have 1 or 2 rows going from the top. So usually you press shift. Okay. Others have 2 rows. Others, they're closer together. So they're actually the 2 rows are really close to each other. Others are kind of like this, where the center's a little closer and it's a little wider. So you're just going to have to look at the jean back pocket and mimic what it is that you see on your jeans. Okay. Also, a typical design that we see, what's considered kind of standard, there's kind of embroidery on the very center. It goes like that. Or you have just stitch lines like this, and usually you have 2 rows, so you just select that and make a copy. Others might have 3 rows. That's what you'd have. And on the side, you either have rivets, which is a little circle with another little circle on top of each other. So you're either going to have rivets or you're going to have a zigzag top stitch. So I'm going to give them white fill. When you do rivets, don't forget to give them white fill. This one arrange front to back. And then the group. The whole thing arranged bring to front. And scale down. And that's my, and then make the stroke 0.15. Make the stroke even thinner because these are tiny. And then bring it on over. So if it's a rivet, you put that on the top like that. Or if it's a zigzag, you're just going to draw the length of the line. And then effect, distort and transform, zigzag. Size 0, about 0.08 or 0.5. Make it really small and increase the ridges per segment. And then click OK. And then bring it onto the corner there. Okay, that's usually where we have reinforced stitching or rivets for your back pocket. You only do one because you're going to reflect the other one on the other side. And ahead and do a freehand rotate. For our jean pocket. And once you're ready, I'm going to go ahead and select this. I'm going to press shift and select my belt loop. Press shift and select my belt loop. Now I'm going to go ahead and reflect that, which is under the rotate tool. Click on the mirror line, go right above it, press shift, alt, release the mouse, release the keyboard. Now I have a copy of my pocket on the other side, as well as my other belt loop. And the last thing you need to show is the stitching on the bottom hem, like we did in the front. And that's about it. If it has special stitching that's shown on the back side, on the inseam, you can. If it's 1 or 2 rows, put that on there. And you can show your stitching. Also, usually we have it in the back, but we show it in the front. But if you didn't show it in the front, then you show it in the back view, which is right next to the seam. We usually see a row of stitching, and then it stops at the fullness of the hip. And then you have 1 row of zigzag. So you just select the line, get the eyedropper tool, okay, and make it really close to the edge. And then it ends with a zigzag stitch. So I'm going to go ahead and just draft a line like that, a solid line, and I'm just going to apply the zigzag. And it can be vertical, or sometimes it's at a little angle. It just depends. And again, effect, distort and transform, zigzag. Keep it small, 0.05 or 0.8. And increase the ridges per segment. Click OK, and now I have my zigzag, and it stops right there at the fullness of the hip. Okay, so you can show that from the front view or the back, which is typical for a pair of jeans. You have 2 rows on the yoke, above or below. Show that, and you're pretty much set for the back of your jeans. Okay, thanks for watching.